The restaurant was perfect. Soft candlelight danced across the white tablecloth as I adjusted my tie nervously. 10 years of marriage to Sarah deserved the best celebration. I had booked the corner table with the city view, ordered her favorite wine, and tucked away tickets to Bali in my jacket pocket. Sarah seemed distracted, checking her phone repeatedly. When our champagne arrived, she looked up with cold eyes. "I have been cheating for 2 years. I am leaving you." The words hung in the air like smoke as my world collapsed. Yet somehow I smiled. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment where you are watching from, hit like, and subscribe to hear how I turned the most humiliating moment of my life into my greatest victory. I am Oliver, 35 years old, a software engineer living in Boston. My story begins 7 years ago at a tech conference downtown. That is where I first saw Sarah presenting a marketing strategy for emerging technologies. She was brilliant, confident with auburn hair falling just past her shoulders, and a laugh that made everyone in the room smile. I found an excuse to introduce myself at the networking event afterward, and we talked until the venue staff started stacking chairs around us. Our connection felt effortless. We shared passions for hiking the New England trails, trying exotic restaurants, and dreaming about traveling to remote corners of the world. Our first date was at a small Ethiopian restaurant, where we awkwardly learned to eat with our hands. By the third date, I knew she was different from anyone I had ever met. The proposal came a year later, during a sunrise hike up Mount Washington. I had carried the ring in my sock to keep it hidden, nearly losing it when I needed to adjust my bootlaces. Her yes echoed across the valley, as the morning light painted the sky pink and gold. The memory still feels like it happened to someone else now. Our wedding day arrived on a perfect June afternoon. Sarah wore a simple dress that caught the breeze as she walked toward me. We wrote our own vows, promising forever to each other while our families wiped away tears. We bought our first home together 6 months later, a colonial-style house with a yard big enough for the family we planned to start. My career at a growing tech firm flourished alongside Sarah as she climbed the ranks in her marketing agency. We built a comfortable life filled with dinner parties, weekend adventures, and plans for our future. We talked about children, deciding to wait until we felt more established, more ready. That readiness never seemed to arrive, always pushed back by one more promotion, one more renovation project, one more year. The first subtle shifts in our marriage came around year 5. Sarah started working later, coming home exhausted with little energy for conversation. I noticed how she would sigh when I suggested weekend plans, how her kisses became quick pecks rather than lingering moments of connection. I blamed our busy schedules and tried to rekindle the spark with surprise date nights and thoughtful gifts. For our 7th anniversary, I arranged a private cooking class with a chef from our favorite Italian restaurant. Sarah seemed genuinely touched, and for a few weeks things felt warmer between us. But slowly the distance returned. She became critical of small things like how I loaded the dishwasher or my habit of leaving shoes by the front door. As our 10th anniversary approached, Sarah started taking more care with her appearance. New clothes appeared in her closet. She joined an exclusive fitness studio and suddenly had regular hair appointments at an upscale salon. Her phone became an extension of her hand, and I noticed how she would turn the screen away when I walked past. When text notifications arrived, she would check them quickly, often excusing herself to respond in another room. I dismissed the doubts creeping into my mind. She was working on a big campaign. She wanted to look her best for our anniversary. I was being paranoid, letting insecurity get the best of me. Instead of confronting my fears, I channeled my energy into planning the perfect anniversary celebration. I made reservations 3 months in advance at Lumiere, the French restaurant where we had celebrated our engagement. I arranged for the corner table with the view of the Boston skyline that Sarah had always loved. I purchased tickets for a 2-week trip to Bali, where we had spent our honeymoon, planning to surprise her during dessert. The morning of our anniversary, I woke early to place a small gift and card on her pillow. Sarah smiled when she opened the silver bracelet, but something seemed off in her eyes. She mentioned a busy day ahead at work, but promised to meet me at the restaurant. I kissed her goodbye, holding on to hope that tonight would bring us back to each other. The hostess at Lumiere led me to our table at 7:30 sharp. Everything looked perfect, from the fresh flowers to the champagne chilling in an ice bucket that I had ordered in advance. I checked my jacket pocket for the 10th time, making sure the Bali tickets were still there, imagining her face lighting up when I revealed the surprise. Sarah arrived 15 minutes late, wearing a black dress I had never seen before. She looked stunning but distant, like a beautiful stranger. After sitting down, she immediately checked her phone, placing it face up on the table beside her water glass. I reached across to take her hand, but she pulled back slightly to adjust her napkin. I tried to start conversation about our first date here, about the waiter who had spilled wine on my shirt, and how Sarah had helped me clean it in the bathroom. She nodded politely, but seemed distracted, her eyes flicking to her phone whenever it lit up with notifications. When the sommelier arrived with the champagne I had selected, Sarah barely acknowledged him. I proposed a toast to 10 years together and all the adventures ahead. The words felt hollow as they left my lips, my instincts screaming that something was terribly wrong. After our appetizers arrived, Sarah placed her fork down deliberately and looked directly at me for the first time that evening. Her voice was steady, rehearsed. "I have been having an affair for the past 2 years. I am leaving you. I am moving out tonight. James is waiting for me. We are starting a life together." The words hit me like physical blows. James, her colleague from work, the one she had mentioned casually in conversation, the one she had said was happily married with 2 children. Each revelation was another knife twist as my mind scrambled to process what was happening. My lungs felt compressed, unable to draw proper breath, as Sarah continued with clinical detachment. She had never been truly happy in our marriage. We had grown apart. She and James shared a connection she had never experienced with me. They were in love, planning a future. Memories flashed through my mind in painful succession. The late nights at work, the business trips that had seemed to multiply, the new clothes, new hairstyle, new gym membership, all the classic signs that I had willfully ignored, convincing myself that our bond was unbreakable. I became aware of other diners glancing our way, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and pity. Had Sarah chosen this public place to ensure I would not make a scene? Was my humiliation part of her plan all along? The thought made me feel physically ill. Sarah continued her practiced speech, explaining how she had already packed her essential belongings that morning while I was in the shower. She would send movers for the rest. She wanted to sell the house immediately and split the proceeds. She had already found an apartment with James. She had consulted a lawyer about divorce proceedings. The methodical planning behind her betrayal stunned me. This was not a momentary lapse in judgment or a recent development. This was calculated, deliberate, planned down to the anniversary dinner reveal for maximum impact. 2 years of lying to my face while building a life with someone else. I sat frozen, watching her lips move as she outlined how our life together would be dismantled. She seemed almost annoyed by my silence, perhaps, expecting tears or anger or begging. But I could not give her the satisfaction of falling apart in public. Something inside me hardened as I realized this was not just about love fading, but about deliberate cruelty. She checked her phone again, smiling slightly at whatever message had arrived. Probably James, wondering if she had delivered the news yet, wondering if I had embarrassed myself with pleading or tears. The thought was a splash of cold water on my shock, replacing numbness with a strange, calm clarity. Sarah looked up expectantly, perhaps realizing I had not spoken a single word since her announcement. "I am sorry you had to find out like this," she said, without sounding sorry at all. "But I could not keep living a lie. This is best for both of us in the long run." What she did not know, what she could not possibly know, was that her carefully orchestrated plan was about to collapse spectacularly. Because contrary to what she believed, this was not the first time I was hearing about her affair. I looked at my wife of 10 years sitting across from me, so confident in her power to destroy me, and did something that clearly surprised her. I smiled, not a pained smile or a bitter one, but genuine, almost relieved. I reached for my champagne glass and raised it toward her. "To your happiness, Sarah," I said calmly. "May your new life bring you everything you deserve." Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows furrowed in confusion. This was not the script she had anticipated. Where were the tears, the pleading, the scene she had prepared for? Her phone buzzed again, but for once she ignored it, thrown off balance by my reaction. I should probably tell you I continued swirling the champagne in my glass that I have known about you and James for about 6 months now. The color drained from her face as I recounted finding text messages on her iPad when it synced to her phone. How I had noticed the pattern of late meetings always coinciding with James being out of office too. How I had followed her one evening to the boutique hotel downtown where she met him in the lobby, kissing him with a passion I had not seen directed at me in years. I told her about the private investigator I had hired who documented their affair meticulously, about the divorce attorney I had been consulting since my suspicions were confirmed, about the financial preparations I had made, legally transferring assets to protect myself for this exact moment. "What are you talking about?" She stammered, her composure cracking for the first time. "You are making this up. You could not have known." "I am curious," I said, ignoring her accusation. "Did you choose our anniversary intentionally for maximum impact, or was that James' idea?" Her silence was confirmation enough. I continued speaking softly, describing how I had spent months processing my grief privately, while she thought I remained oblivious. How I had moved through denial, rage, bargaining, and depression, emerging on the other side, with clarity, rather than bitterness. Sarah grabbed her phone, typing furiously, likely texting James that things were not going according to plan. I waited patiently until she looked up, her confidence now replaced with nervous energy. "The divorce papers were filed yesterday," I said. "Your copies will be delivered to your office tomorrow. I have already moved my personal items to a new apartment. The house is on the market as of this morning, and given the neighborhood demand, it should sell quickly." My calm recitation of facts seemed to unnerve her more than any emotional outburst would have. She had prepared for tears and accusations, not for this methodical dismantling of her leverage. Just then, Sarah glanced toward the restaurant entrance, and her expression shifted to one of relief. I turned to see what had caught her attention, and had to suppress a smile of my own. James had indeed entered the restaurant wearing an expensive suit and carrying a small gift bag, but he was not looking in our direction. "Watch carefully," I told Sarah as James approached a table on the opposite side of the restaurant. A woman sat with her back to us, her blonde hair arranged in an elegant updo. James leaned down to kiss her cheek affectionately, before sitting across from her, placing the gift on the table between them. "That is his wife, Amanda," I explained as recognition dawned on Sarah's face. "Today is their 15th anniversary. Interesting coincidence, is it not? They renewed their vows last month in a private ceremony in their backyard. Their children served as attendants. It was quite touching according to the photos James posted on his private family Instagram account." Sarah stared in disbelief as James and his wife clinked glasses in their own celebration. "I have copies of all his text messages to you," I continued. "The ones where he promises to leave Amanda once the timing is right. The ones where he says their marriage is just for show. The ones where he says they sleep in separate bedrooms. Would you like to see the recent vacation photos of them in Hawaii, with their children? They appear quite happily married." By now, Sarah was shaking visibly, her carefully constructed reality crumbling around her. "No," she whispered. "He promised. We have an apartment together. We signed a lease." "Did you actually see this apartment?" I asked gently. "Or did he just show you pictures online? Did you ever meet the landlord, or did James handle all the paperwork?" Her silence told me everything I needed to know. James had played her masterfully, creating a fantasy future, while never intending to leave his wife. The apartment likely did not exist at all. I caught the eye of our waiter and signaled for the check. As I waited, I watched Sarah continue to stare at James and Amanda across the restaurant, the truth of her situation sinking in painfully. When the bill arrived, I paid in full, including a generous tip for the staff who had witnessed our uncomfortable drama. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and looked down at the woman I had once built my life around. "I truly hope you find happiness someday, Sarah," I said sincerely, "but it will not be with James, and it will not be with me." As I walked toward the exit, I heard her chair scrape against the floor as she hurriedly gathered her things to follow me. "Oliver, wait," she called just loud enough to make several diners turn their heads. "Please, we need to talk about this. I made a mistake. I paused at the door, turning to face her one last time. The mistake was mine for not trusting my instincts sooner, for believing in something that had already died. I wish you well, but we have nothing left to discuss. I walked out into the cool evening air, got into my car and drove away. As Sarah stood abandoned on the sidewalk, her phone pressed to her ear, likely discovering that James was not answering her calls. For the first time in months, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders, replaced by something unexpected: freedom. The weeks following that fateful dinner were not easy, despite my preparation. There is a vast difference between intellectually preparing for the end of a marriage and emotionally experiencing it. My new apartment felt hollow and strange, filled with boxes I had little motivation to unpack. I took a leave of absence from work, unable to focus on code when my life had been so dramatically rewritten. Grief came in unexpected waves. I would be fine for hours, then find myself staring at a coffee mug Sarah had given me, overcome with memories of Sunday mornings and shared crossword puzzles. I would reach for my phone to tell her something funny before remembering we no longer shared our daily observations. My therapist explained that I was mourning not just the relationship, but the future I had planned, the identity I had as a husband, the safety I had felt in partnership. She encouraged me to acknowledge each feeling without judgment, to give myself permission to experience the full spectrum of loss. Friends emerged from the woodwork, with surprising support. Michael, my college roommate who had moved across the country, called daily to check in. Lisa from work organized a hiking group that got me out of the apartment on weekends. My parents, who had always loved Sarah, demonstrated remarkable restraint in not vilifying her, simply reminding me that I deserved someone who chose me every day. 3 months after the separation, I decided to start reconnecting with parts of myself that had been neglected. I joined a rock climbing gym, rediscovering the physical challenge I had loved in college. I signed up for a photography course, spending weekends capturing urban landscapes around Boston. Each new activity became a building block in my reconstructed life. I used some of my saved vacation time to travel solo, something I had never done during my marriage. 2 weeks in Portugal taught me that I could navigate foreign countries alone, make friends in hostels, and sit comfortably at restaurant tables for one. The experience was both terrifying and exhilarating, proving that I was more resilient than I had known. The divorce proceedings moved forward with surprising efficiency. Sarah contested nothing after discovering James' complete deception. He had never intended to leave. His wife had never leased an apartment, had been playing the same manipulative games with several women simultaneously. The evidence I had collected made the division of assets straightforward, with the court recognizing her infidelity in the final settlement. Our house sold within weeks in the hot market, providing each of us with a financial cushion to rebuild. I learned through mutual friends that Sarah had moved to Chicago for a fresh start, and I genuinely hoped she would find healing there. The anger that had initially fueled my careful planning had faded, replaced by a strange compassion for someone who had been both deceiver and deceived. Work became an unexpected sanctuary as I returned with renewed focus. 6 months after the separation, I was offered a leadership position on an exciting new project. The promotion came with challenges that engaged my mind, fully leaving less room for dwelling on the past. My team celebrated with me over beers, their genuine happiness for my success touching me deeply. I dated casually during that first year, never letting any relationship develop beyond a few pleasant evenings. I needed to learn who I was on my own before inviting someone else into my life. Each brief connection taught me something about what I wanted and did not want, helping me refine my understanding of healthy partnership. 18 months after my marriage ended, I attended a gallery opening with a work colleague. That is where I met Amelia, the owner of the small but vibrant art space, showcasing local photographers. She had short curly hair, glasses that kept sliding down her nose, and a passionate way of describing the creative process that immediately caught my attention. Our conversation that evening flowed naturally, touching on everything from film photography to favorite hiking trails. She gave me her card as I was leaving, suggesting I might be interested in her upcoming workshop on urban composition. I waited 3 days before calling, cautious about my still healing heart. Amelia and I progressed slowly from workshop acquaintances to coffee companions to dinner dates. I was transparent about my divorce from the beginning, and she shared her own story of a broken engagement years earlier. We bonded over lessons learned and the unexpected growth that comes from disappointment. Unlike my whirlwind romance with Sarah, this relationship developed thoughtfully with clear communication and healthy boundaries. 2 years after that devastating anniversary dinner, I realized something profound while hiking with Amelia along the coast. The betrayal I had experienced painful, as it had forced me to rebuild myself more authentically. I had discovered strengths I never knew I possessed, passions that had been dormant, and a capacity for joy, independent of external validation. I occasionally heard updates about Sarah through our dwindling circle of mutual friends. She had struggled after moving to Chicago, but eventually found her footing with a new job and therapy. I felt no pleasure in her difficulties nor resentment for her eventual stability. Her journey was her own, now completely separate from mine. The most valuable lesson from this chapter of my life was understanding that my worth was never dependent on someone else choosing me. The betrayal reflected her character, not my value. This realization freed me from the fear that had initially driven my careful revenge planning, allowing genuine forgiveness to take root. Amelia moved in with me last month, bringing her collection of vintage cameras and infectious laugh into my daily life. We are discussing a future together, approaching commitment with both hope and clear-eyed wisdom. I know now that love is not about grand gestures or perfect anniversary celebrations, but about choosing each other honestly every ordinary day. I look back at that devastating dinner sometimes and feel gratitude alongside the fading pain. Had Sarah not revealed her betrayal, had James not entered the restaurant at that perfect moment, I might have continued in a hollow marriage for years, missing the opportunity to discover my resilience and capacity for authentic connection. They say that the best revenge is living well. I believe the best revenge is not revenge at all, but the freedom that comes from releasing the need for it. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led you somewhere better? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, and share with someone who might need to know they can survive their darkest moment. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes what feels like an ending is actually the beginning of a far better story.